This is an amazing article from the BBC that speaks to some of the concepts that we have been talking about, especially in this political climate, where we have talked about men going more right leaning and extra conservative, and women going more left leaning and actually leaving the church. We have been talking about this. So, this article is titled Young U.S. Men Are Joining Russian Churches, Promising Absurd Levels of Manliness. And for this, I need to put on my fake glasses for journalism's sake. I'm going to start at the end of this article because it really kind of summarizes why men are turning more conservative or more religious. So, this man says Russia does not have homosexual marriage, it does not have civil unions. It's a place where you can homeschool your kids. And of course, I love the 1,000-year history of Orthodox Christianity here, he told a Russian video host. This wispy bearded Texan is in the vanguard of a movement urging conservatives to relocate to Russia. Last August, Putin introduced fast track shared values visa for those fleeing Western liberalism because women in the West are becoming too self actualized and, a push for feminism and autonomy and stuff. And this is precisely the opposite of that. And this is the reason why men and women are diverging. Okay, back to the article. This right here is Father Moses. This dude is hitting on all of the masculinity things. He is a pastor, so he got the Christianity. He is a gym bro, and he's a podcaster. Boom. Let's get these gains. So here he is on one of his videos. I'm sure Christ is pushing him to push some massive weight. I showed you that because he's the one at the beginning of this article. So it says, a lot of people ask me, Father Moses, how can I increase my manliness to absurd levels? In a YouTube video, a priest is championing a form of virile, unapologetic masculinity. Skinny jeans, crossing your legs, using an iron, shaping your eyebrows, and even eating soup are among the things he derides as too feminine. I also heard that straws are also feminine. You can't use straws. I don't even think that you can eat ice cream off of a cone. There are other videos of Father Moses McPherson, a powerfully built father of 5, weightlifting to the sound of heavy metal. He was raised a Protestant and once worked as a roofer and now serves as a priest in the Russian Orthodox Church outside Russia, or ROCOR, in Georgetown, Texas, an offshoot of the Mother Church in Moscow. ROCOR, a global network with headquarters in New York, has recently been expanding across parts of the United States, mainly as a result of people converting from other faiths. In the last 6 months, Father Moses has prepared 75 new followers for baptism in his church of the Mother of God just north of Austin. When my wife and I converted 20 years ago, we used to call Orthodoxy the best kept secret because people just didn't know what it was. But in the past year and a half, our congregation has tripled in size. And that honestly kind of coincides with this political cycle. He's talking about what's happened in the past 6 months. What happened in the past 6 months was this very contentious political season, and the last year and a half has been a whole political season as far as the campaigning and everything has gone. During the Sunday liturgy at Father Moses' church, I am struck by the number of men in their 20s and 30s praying and crossing themselves at the back of the nave, and how this religion, with traditions dating back to 4th century AD, seems to attract men uneasy with life in modern America. Their 20s and 30s. Like I said, this coincides perfectly with the way that men are going more conservative as women are going more liberal, or more, towards feminism and having equality and all that stuff. So this is Convert Theodore. It says, software engineer Theodore tells me he had a dream and a wife he adored, but he felt empty inside, as if there was this hole in his heart. He believes society has been very harsh on men and is constantly telling them they're in the wrong. He complains that men are criticized for wanting to be the breadwinner and support a stay-at-home wife. And women are saying precisely the opposite. I want to go out and work and have my own money and not be dependent on a man. So that's precisely why there are diverging paths for men and women currently. He says, we are told that's a very toxic relationship nowadays. That's not how it should be. Women should be stuck and be dependent on men, basically. Almost all the converts I meet have opted to homeschool their offspring, partly because they believe women should prioritize their families rather than their careers. There you go. Father John Whiteford, an archpriest in ROCOR from Spring, north of Houston, says homeschooling ensures a religious education and is a way of protecting your children while avoiding any talk about transgenderism or the 57 genders of the month or whatever. We don't want them to talk about what's going on in the actual world. Let's keep them inoculated in this bubble. I'm not saying homeschooling is bad. We homeschool our children, but for different reasons. Compared to the millions of worshipers in America's evangelical megachurches, the numbers of Christian Orthodox are tiny, only about 1% of the population. That includes Eastern Orthodoxy as practiced across Russia, Ukraine, Eastern Europe, and Greece, and the Oriental Orthodox from the Middle East and Africa. Founded by priests and clergy fleeing the Russian Revolution in 1917, ROCOR is seen by many as the most conservative Orthodox jurisdiction in the United States. Yet this small religious community is a vocal one, and what's unfolding within it mirrors broader political shifts, especially following Trump's dramatic pivot towards Moscow, being Putin's puppet. It all makes sense. All of this goes together. The true increase in the number of converts is hard to quantify, but data from the Pew Research Center suggests Orthodox Christians are 64% male, up from 46% in 2007. 64%. So this is, like I said, this is mirroring what's going on in politics as men are going more religious and women are leaving the religion. A smaller study of 773 converts appears to back the trend. Most recent newcomers are men, and many say the pandemic pushed them to seek a new faith. That survey is from the Orthodox Church in America, or OCA, which was established by Russian monks in Alaska in the late 18th century and now has more than 700 parishes, missions, communities, monasteries, and institutions in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico, which identify as Russian Orthodox. Professor Scott Kenworthy, who studies the history and thought of Eastern Orthodox Christianity, particularly in modern Russia, says his OCA parish in Cincinnati is absolutely bursting at the seams. He's attended the same church for 24 years and says congregation numbers remain steady until the COVID lockdown. Since then, there has been a constant flow of new inquirers and people preparing to be baptized, known as catechumens. This is not just a phenomenon of my own parish or a few places in Texas, Professor Kenworthy says. It's definitely something broader. The digital space is key in this wave of new converts. Father Moses has a big following online. When he shares a picture of a positive pregnancy test on his Instagram feed, he gets 6,000 likes for announcing the arrival of his sixth child. But there are dozens of other podcasts and videos presented by Orthodox clergy and an army of followers, mostly male. So this all goes together. Masculinity, podcast bros, gym culture, all of this just goes together perfectly. Father Moses tells his congregation there are two ways of serving God, being a monk or a nun or getting married. Those who take the second path should avoid contraception and have as many children as possible. He's saying that at a time where women are saying, I do not want that many kids. I don't want any kids. This goes exactly against what women are saying that they want to do. This is the reason why these men are pushing women away like whew, women are saying, I want no parts of that. Show me one saint in the history of the church who ever blessed any kind of birth control, Father Moses says. As for masturbation, what the church calls self-abuse, the priest condemns it as pathetic and unmanly. Father Moses says orthodoxy is not masculine, it's just normal, while in the West everything has become very feminized. Some Protestant churches, he believes, mainly cater for women. I don't want to go to services and feel like a Taylor Swift concert, Father Moses says. If you look at the language of the worship music, it's all emotional. And that's not men. That's not for men. All that emotion and stuff. Alyssa Jelitek Davis, a former Protestant who now belongs to the Greek Orthodox Church in Austin, is a Sunday school teacher and has her own podcast. She says many converts belong to the anti-woke crowd and sometimes have strange ideas about their new faith, especially those in the Russian church. They see it as a military, rigid, disciplinary, masculine, authoritarian religion, Alyssa says. It's kind of funny. It's almost as if the old American Puritans and their craziness is resurfacing. That man that you just saw, his name is Buck Johnson, and he's a former atheist. So that's who we're about to talk about now. It says Buck Johnson has worked as a firefighter for 25 years and hosts the Counterflow podcast. He says he was initially scared to enter his local Russian Orthodox church as he looks different, covered in tattoos, but tells me he was welcomed with open arms. He was also impressed the church stayed open through the COVID lockdown. Sitting on a couch in front of two huge TV screens at his home in Lockhart, he says his newfound faith is changing his view of the world. Negative American views on Russia are what worries me, Buck says. He tells me the mainstream legacy media presents a distorted picture of the invasion of Ukraine. I think there's a holdover from the boomer generation here in America that lived through the Cold War, Buck says, and I don't quite grasp why. They say Russia's bad. I'm going to be real with y'all. I think that the way that Putin and Russia has infiltrated America has been a sight to see, and it definitely is going to need studying. All right, back to the article. It says the head of the Russian church in Moscow, Patriarch Kirill, has doggedly backed the invasion of Ukraine, calling it a holy war and expressing little compassion for its victims. When I asked Archpriest Father John Whiteford about Russia's top cleric, who many see as a warmonger, he assures me the patriarch's words have been distorted. Footage and photographs of Putin quoting Bible verses, holding candles during service in Moscow's Cathedral of Christ, the Savior, and stripping down to his swim trunks to plunge into icy waters at Epiphany seem to have struck a chord. Some, in America and other countries, see Russia as the last bastion of true Christianity. This is a man who escaped America to go over to Russia and actually be extra masculine. And he's standing here with his wife. Nearly a decade ago, another Orthodox convert turned priest from Texas, Father Joseph Gleason, moved from America to Boris Ogolsbysky, a village 4 hours drive north of Moscow, with his wife and 8 children. Russia does not have homosexual marriage. It does not have civil unions. It is a place where you can homeschool your kids. And of course, I love the 1,000-year history of Orthodox Christianity here. This wispy, bearded Texan is in the vanguard of a movement urging conservatives to relocate to Russia. Last August, Putin introduced a fast-track shared values visa for those fleeing Western liberalism. Back in Texas, Buck tells me he and his fellow converts are turning their backs on instant gratification and American consumerism. We're thinking of things long term, Buck says, like traditions, love for your family, love for your community, love for neighbors. I think that orthodoxy fits us well, and especially in Texas. I thought that this article was very, very interesting, and it gives an idea of what is going on in these men. They're not getting what they want out of women, as women are pushing for more equality, more egalitarianism in relationships, and these men are looking to go backwards. They want to strip away the gains that women, that the coloreds, that the LGBT community have gotten. And when I say the colored, y'all, I'm being sarcastic. I'm being snarky. I don't really mean it like that way. Anyways, let me know what you think about all of this. Enjoy the conversation. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.